guys, make sure you have your packets out, as always. Remember, quick reminder that tomorrow is your Socratic seminar, so that's Socratic seminar number 3. It's regarding the topic of art. Does it, or should it, divide or unite people? You're going to be taking up different positions on that. I want specific, concrete examples. So whoever's going to be in your team volunteering for that Socratic seminar circle, someone who I haven't heard from yet, because they get those points for the semester. You want to have concrete examples, either from the chapter or from a couple chapters. Look through the gardeners and find sections and think, okay, does this look like it's uniting people, or does it look like it's more dividing people, separating people out, making people more individualized? And so you want to be thinking about that general question of, is art an individual thing, like individual expression, or is it meant to bring people all together under a same common cultural theme? So that's sort of a guiding question for you if you're having trouble understanding or finding examples. So make sure that you have something relevant. You guys have done awesome work so far. You've exceeded my expectations for both Socratic seminars so far, so I want to continue that trend. I don't want anything dropping off and going, oh, I didn't really get anything out of that. Hopefully every time we have one of those, you guys get something out of it about the nature of art in general, connecting it. Another way that we connect to the nature of art is through these thematic units. So again, this is thematic unit 3, actually 2, because we haven't done the male ideal. I do that with Greek now, so I've done a little bit out of order. But this is called the religious narrative. So go and write that into your thematic unit page so that you have the title there. It's also a way for you also to, if you need to, you can complete more of it at another time. I know I said that these are due today. If we don't get through the religious narrative, they'll be due tomorrow. So more than likely, we won't finish the thematic unit today. The Socratic seminar will happen tomorrow. Probably for about half the period is kind of what I'm hoping for, although of course, if it goes longer, I'm willing for that. And then finishing up the thematic unit whenever we're finished with Socratic seminar, either on Thursday or on Friday after the quiz. Yes?
So when we do the Greek stats, we will have our thematic unit
on the male ideal, yeah, number 2. So I usually do female ideal, male ideal, and religious narratives. This year I'm doing female ideal, feminine ideal, religious narratives, and then male ideal. And we do Greeks later on. We'll do in between. We'll do religious funerary rituals. We'll do something about death. Talk about death and art. So that'll also kind of come because of the Egyptians in chapter 3. Yes. Good question. Question was about Socratic seminars. Should they come examples out of the gardeners, out of your textbook? The answer is no. It doesn't have to come from there. I would prefer that you connect it to art history, because that way you're preparing for the AP test. But if you have examples that you want to bring in that are your own contemporary art or something along those lines, I would highly encourage that too. So I want you guys to be enjoying art at all levels, whether it be your favorite gaming design or something like that. That might be an interesting thing, like World of Warcraft or Minecraft or something. That's unity right there, right? Everyone enjoying this cultural. So you're talking about like commercial art. I mean, that would be a whole other area that you could explore. So very, very good. So religious narrative. The idea that, and I'll let you in on a little secret about thematic units in general, but about art and about basically the entire course. Everything that we learn about is going to be reflections of the same portrait of humanity, the same human condition that we seem to all share. Everyone's struggling in similar ways. Scientifically, and I think I've made this connection before, I've suggested this in the past, but scientifically, I mean, we're practically clones of each other. I don't know if you think about that, but each one of you in here shares so much in common, genetically, that the expressions that you make, the ways that you do, it's not just culture, it's not because you live close by, it's because you share common ancestry, it's because you share so much of the same sort of family line of our species. That, when we think about religion and think about all the differences of our religions and all the differences of our languages and differences of everything that seems to separate us, at the basic level there are so many similarities, there's so many reflections of the same human condition that we all share, that we all experience, that this idea of differences really becomes secondary. So primary, we can think of the theme of religion as something we can all understand, even if we don't agree with their religion of the particular culture or no longer believe that particular religion. We can understand it and appreciate it and realize why it came about the way that it did. So this religious narrative really is sort of it does two things. It teaches us a little bit about those narratives, those stories of religion that have gone on for thousands of years now. And the second thing is it kind of makes general similarities about all religions and how they kind of connect together regarding art. So that's sort of the key concepts here, is that how religious narratives connect to art, how it connects us to each other. And that's sort of what this warm-up was supposed to be. But I just want to get an informal discussion going, maybe 2 minutes, very quickly. What do you believe to be the single most universal message of religion? So take a couple seconds to think of that. And this word human condition, if you haven't written it down before, I don't know if I've said it before or not, but this word human condition is a very specific term of art. It means that everyone is sharing similar things as humans on this planet. Human condition. And the two are connected here. What do you believe to be the single most universal message? If you were to try and take one sentence to summarize all religions, what would it be? Could you do that? I'll give you guys about a minute to just kind of quickly jot down an idea about that. What is the meaning of life? 1 minute, jot it down.
Meaning of life.
No, universal message of religion. I'm just kidding. I know it's a broad thing like meaning of life, but try your best. This is not the thematic.
What?
Yeah, put it on the summary page. So this is on your general note-taking section of your thematic unit. You can write it, or you can write it in your general note area. About 30 more seconds. Got to go quick, just so that we have a little bit of time to talk about it before we delve into some of the facts. Got some really exciting things today. I told you at the beginning that this was sort of my area. I did world religions and literature, religious literature, so this is kind of my thing. I teach world literature too in English 10 class. We get a lot of this next year. What is the most common universal message? Someone just started throwing out some ideas for me. Yes?
To believe in God.
Okay, so it seems like it's sort of a higher power thing. Do all religions believe in a higher power?
Yes. Yeah. Sort of. Well,
Seems like that might be one of our definitions. So we'll shelve that. Is there exceptions to that? Perhaps. Yes.
I put HOPE, which stands for Heavenly Optimism Personified Energetically. Eventually.
Wait, did you create your own acronym just now, or did you actually hear this somewhere?
No, it's my own acronym.
You created an acronym right now?
Yeah.
That's awesome. Okay, so HOPE. HOPE is what again?
It's Heavenly Optimism Personified Energetically, Evangelistically, and Eternally.
So you have like hope with a lot of E's at the end, like
Yes,
hope,
yes,
energetically, evangelistically. Wow, so I mean, each one of those words are pretty important, right? The idea, well, just the acronym itself, hope is a pretty big thing. To get hope in an afterlife, optimistic, trying to constantly see the good in life, personified ideas. So we have a lot of gods that are personified natural forces, right? Very good. And then evangelistically, that means like to share it with other people. So those are all important things. Hope, gosh, I'm gonna use that. You're gonna use that next year. Hope, or hope with a lot of different ones there. What else? So that was pretty good. What else? What's a sentence that's sort of the universal message of religion?
Oh,
A sentence.
Yeah, one sentence. Yeah.
There's some higher being from out in
Okay. From some other, somewhere beyond us. So I think it's sort of not just that there's a higher power, but that a higher power seems to be beyond our knowing of things. And so we often question that other being or that higher being about why things happen. So one of the things, along with kind of what I've said, because I've heard it twice now, so I'm gonna kind of connect those. Higher powers, there's higher powers, but that's really not why we do religion, to just identify a higher power. we do religion as a species in part because we're trying to understand that higher power. It's a very important thing that we do. Religion is something that humans accomplish. So it's not just good enough that we identify some random higher power, but to begin to understand that higher power and to learn about that higher power so that we can better our own lives or understand our own lives or know how to interpret the lives or the natural world or something along those lines. So it's about bettering, it's about interpreting, it's about understanding. And a lot of these will happen through religious narrative. I don't want to go so far as to say religious fiction, although I do believe that these are fictions, and that isn't to say that all religion is false. It's that all religions tell stories, and I want to separate that. I know it's going to be kind of weird because fiction is not true, but I don't see it that way. Fictions are very true in very varying levels, in varying ways. It's true when Odysseus struggles to return home, or making difficult decisions between one sea monster and another, the Scylla and the Charybdis. Which way is he going to go? Both ways he's going to lose men, but he has to go somewhere because he has to go home. It's fiction, and yet it teaches me a truth about what it means to be a leader and have to make sacrifices, and all those themes that are true within the story. And it teaches you something, helps me understand the world, helps me interpret those around me, interpret the higher powers that be. When I'm out of control, I can use story to kind of center myself, become in control, become strong, etc. So a lot of those things all are connected together. Yes?
Just one question. Did we talk about the ballet of the vultures?
Excuse me?
I don't know how to pronounce the word, but it's like, yeah,
Stelia the vultures? I'm not familiar. Is it in the textbook? Yeah, I did not do a. So that's fine. You can take notes on that work as well. If it's not in my snapshots though, then I didn't say it. Okay. And the word human condition again is all those things like we all contribute to death. We're all sort of contributing to our own demise at some point. We're immortal. That's one of the many things that goes into the idea of the human condition.
Demigods are real? Oh my god.
Well, they're real in the sense that we have constructs to understand the religious narratives or religious fictions about them. Where are we going with this? Here's a list of some of the things that we're going to look at within this thematic unit. And these are words that you need to know. You can write them down right now. There's a quick list, and then go back and define them as you need to. And if you already know these, like my upperclassmen might already have a good working knowledge of this, so that's fantastic. For you underclassmen, know this is your first time probably coming to grips with the different ways in which religion is expressed. So write them down. Animism. I hope you're writing down, especially that back row there. Animism, polytheism. The idea of a hero. We all have a sort of a colloquial definition or a sort of informal definition of hero. There's actually a literary or artistic definition of hero that we need to understand. Or demigods or half-gods. You kind of maybe are familiar with that, with Hercules and with Perseus, Percy Jackson, if you've read the series, the Lightning Thief series. Yes? Say it again? In your thematic unit page.
The general notes.
Are you still? Yeah, this is all summary notes that you're going to then input or interpret into the other areas of the box if you need to. Yes.
Is it Athena?
Athena is not a demigod. She is a goddess, right? Goddess of wisdom and of sort of strategic war. Judgment, the idea of judgment narratives will be very important to artwork, because part of the human condition is to think, and we have this terrible notion that, or this terrible idea that, well, not idea. We are able to think about the future. Most animals can't do that. Not just 5 minutes, but to think, what's going to happen when everything is gone? The whole end of everything. And so art and religion has attempted to interpret that great mystery of our own projection, our own ability to see the future or think about the future. Hinduism. So here are the main world religions directly specified: Hinduism, Buddhism, Judaism. Should have I don't think you can see, sorry. Judaism, Christianity, and Islam. So just write Christianity, Islam on the bottom there. It's not showing up for some reason. Judaism, Christianity, Islam. And this thematic unit is organized based on chronology, but clustered into religious types. So kind of know that I'm trying to connect them. So I'm going to start with animism and Hinduism, kind of go through a quick. So you can see how this can take a long time. We're walking through the entire world of religions as a quick overview. It'll be your job when we do the particular cultures in which we see them develop. For instance, Christianity developing in the late antique period of the Roman Empire. It'll be your job to go home and either do a wiki search or open up that old Bible that you haven't, used in decades in Sunday school, and actually learn a little bit about the basic events of the Bible, so that you know what people are painting about throughout the next 1,000 years or so. Conversely, in Islam, if you don't have a Quran or something like that, wiki, or find someone that you know is Muslim and talk with them about the basic understandings of what Islam teaches, so that you can understand when you see the architecture and again the geometric designs or the paintings or mosaics, you can understand what it connects to Islam and how. So you're going to need to learn a little bit about those, and you guys are doing it on a reverse end, in which will be reinforced with world history, because you'll be learning hopefully about those things in world history next year. It'll all kind of click. I have a lot of students come back from world history now. They're like, Mr. Morris, it's all making sense now. Like they understand half of, they're getting one half of the story, and now they're getting the second half. They're getting the expression, and then coming back and actually reading about the ancient events. So again, if you didn't get these 3 days, Buddhism, Judaism, Christianity is on three names here. Big world religions right here. So Buddhism comes out of India. We'll talk about that. But then it does kind of become an Asian, general Asian, and then there's different types that come into Japan. Let's start with polytheism. Sort of one of the earliest forms of religion and religious narrative starts with a polytheism. This is your Greek. This is your Roman. In a lot of ways, this is the ancient Near East. Although there's some specific differences sometimes between even the polytheistic religions. So, for instance, there's a fancy word, you probably don't know it, you need to know it, but just know it's there. Henotheism, which means you have, you believe that there's only one important God to worship, and that's your God, and that your God is going to fight against other people's gods. You think that's monotheism, but monotheism literally means there's only one God, no other gods exist at all. So everyone else's gods are fake. But henotheists are kind of like, Shamash does exist, but my God's better than Shamash, and my God's the only God I should worship. If that makes sense. So it's sort of like a functional monotheism, but it's also
competitive religion.
There's only yeah, exactly. Religions in conflict are competitive religions. Very good. The Greeks, however, view you have your one God that you may help, but then you know that you need to kind of put your basket in other places. If you're going on a voyage, you need to go talk to Hermes. If you're going to war, you got to make sure you channel Ares and that sort of thing. So you have all these different gods that you work with in tandem. Both of those relate to polytheism, which means how many gods? What's poly mean?
I mean, many,
right? So a lot of gods. Okay, so a lot of gods emphasizes a pantheon of deities, usually depicted as humans, or animals, animal hybrids, or symbols. The first symbol that's used, just a straight up symbol of a god, is very interesting and occurs in late Egyptian context. And it's an interesting monotheistic precursor to Judaism and Christianity in the Amarna period that we'll study. But they create this sort of circle thing with lots of arms. Sort of like the flying spaghetti monster, if you're ever so inclined, if you know anything about that. But it kind of looks like this. It's really interesting. And it sort of replaces the sun god Ra with this sort of general thing called Aten. Aten is like the important god, right? So this god becomes like the single god that takes over all of Anubis' jobs, and Ra's the only one god. Anyways, that's an example of a symbolic god. There's not too many of them like that early on like this. Typically have stratified power structure, meaning they all are different jobs. right? You have different jobs because at this time, what do you think they're trying to interpret in the about the human condition? What are they specifically trying to interpret with polytheistic gods?
That we have
What do you think?
this,
Hold on, I know you're doing a lot.
There's a God basically controlling everything.
Yeah, that there's a God for everything, right? So it's interpreting nature, it's interpreting conflict, and that sort of thing. So we're trying to interpret the world based on gods. Okay, it's sort of a proto-science in a lot of ways, trying to understand the world, why is this working, and they attempt to test it through religious narratives. Focused on immortality, but are not omnipotent, kind of an important little characteristic of polytheistic religions. That these characters are not, when we say omnipotent, which means like they can do anything. They're omnipotent, very powerful, everything powerful. So these gods are not omnipotent, meaning they are, either weak regarding one idea or another, and so they are in separate realms. All right, so they might be immortal, but they're not omnipotent. These are the characteristics of a polytheistic religion. An example of a polytheistic religion would be something like the Greek culture, which is sort of the immortalized Western understanding of polytheism. Because to us, when we think polytheism, we think Zeus, we think Ares, Athena, etc. And it's because not only did the Greek Empire turn into, or I should say be adopted by, subsumed by, what other even larger empire? Roman. And so all of the Greek gods became adopted as Roman gods, and they thought that they were a continuation of the Greek. And then the same thing happened between the Roman Empire and what other even bigger empire? After the Roman Empire falls and they sort of split up for a while, what do you think happens after that? What comes out of Rome? Christianity. So you have sort of Christian empires. They don't adopt necessarily the pantheon of gods, but they take on a lot of the similar sort of traits. They produce a lot of work that's in that same kind of quality of Zeus and of Ares, and there's different symbols that are continuing even into the Christian tradition. For instance, you have we'll talk about it, but the Nike of Samothrace is this beautiful winged creature, and what would that look like, or how would we adopt that as in a Christian context? Yeah. Angels, right? So angels are sort of this continuing hybrid person that is depicted throughout history. You ever think about angels? Angels, do they have wings? I don't know. It doesn't really say a whole lot. We'll talk about it. Anyways, we'll talk about it. Anyway, so this is a what we call a frieze on a pediment. So this is sort of a depiction of a scene in which Zeus and Hera are together as the dominant of the two, and then you have onlookers here, including Athena on the right, Ares and Poseidon on the left. These sort of big three at the top here. Or I should say big two. Hades doesn't come to the top. He's not predicted. Anyways, we'll see several depictions of all those gods here in a moment. So just kind of giving an overview again. But just there's polytheism all over the place. This is actually in the Indonesian continent, Angkor Wat, in Cambodia, and in all the sort of these Southeast Asian contexts here. So you have Hinduism, and primarily has itself a huge pantheon of gods as well, and goddesses. Hinduism is sort of one of the largest pantheons in the world. It kind of can subsume any type of god, just kind of bring them into the Hindu religion. And they depict their gods in a very similar way. Again, these friezes that are connected to their architecture, that are built as a result of sort of religious purpose, either a temple or something along those lines. These niches, though, and these characters are much more festive in their description. So in these non-Western contexts, take a look at the difference here. These characters are all sitting and standing in this sort of orderly way, whereas these characters here, the emphasis is on dance and movement and that kind of intense sort of S-curve we call contrapposto and all this kind of stuff that goes along with these hand gestures and jewelry and beautiful sort of tracery around the objects. So the pantheon of gods and what their demeanor is really tells us something about the nature of the culture itself. This culture is emphasizing something very different than the Greeks in terms of how their gods are. By the way, the Hindu gods do not have the stratification that goes on with these gods. These gods are all orderly. These gods are just like doing everything all the time. They're like very, very sporadic and changing and fluid in their class systems. There's no class system with the systems of Southeast Asia in the same sense. There's maybe 3 important gods, and then there's a lot of just kind of floating avatars and that sort of thing, which we will kind of get into. This is a 19th century depiction of the Norse gods. So what's the it's like Thor, but like what's the Frida? I think is the main god. You know, our days of the week are based on the Norse gods. Are you familiar with that? Like Thursday is Thor's day, Frida's day. Saturn is from the Greeks, so Saturday, Sunday, Moon Day. So you can kind of see how they we have Twes Day and Woden's Day. So those are all the. Anyways, these are just etymology for you, fun fact. But we have Norse gods as well, sort of with their own stories, their own pantheons, their own heavens that we will look at as well. Now, a really sort of strange and where my knowledge breaks down will be the Native American and the Central American context, and that'll be for you guys to augment with a non-Western project that we will do. We'll do 2 of them this semester, so we'll get into those in the next few weeks, get you kind of set up for that. But you'll have to learn about from a chapter on some type of Mesoamerican culture that you'll then present to the class. And in this work, it's kind of strange. This is sort of like a totem type structure in which it's like a column that builds from top to bottom a story here, and this story has something akin to a sacrifice of a child that goes on as part of the creation of the world. And you see a sort of death and snake kind of context here as well with the head of this guy. So very, very different conception, hybrids that are non-existent in the Greek context. Yes?
Is that symmetry up there with the...
Very balanced, yeah.
Oh, it's a snake.
Yeah, very bilateral, and that's a snake head, yeah. So at the top there. But it has to do with, it's literally like a snake either eating or sacrificing this human thing here, and it's sort of part of the process there. You can imagine the conflicts that would arise when Christians would see this kind of art and not understand it, and so think of it as this horrible demonic presence as opposed to a story of creation, which is sort of what it is.
Oh, the serpent like an Adam and Eve.
Like an Adam and Eve, which is a very interesting connection there. All right, there's still fear even of serpents. It's a human condition thing. We don't like snakes. They're creepy and make me feel weird. Then you have like the Shinto religion. You have 2 large gods that are sort of either weeping and creating the Japanese context, or some of the stories show him as taking his large sort of broadsword or his pike and throwing it through weaving it through the water and creating the Japanese islands. This is the native Japanese culture of Shintoism and its depiction in the Middle Ages. So we have lots of different gods. Usually these gods in the pantheistic context are creating the world somehow through their own sort of either mistake or sort of as a byproduct of their stories. But you'll see these depicted throughout our history. So in a nutshell, polytheism, many gods, and there's lots of different stories that go with that. This is just an overview, so if you're feeling like, oh, I didn't get any of that, okay, just try to let the general context, and then you'll fill it in as we go along. So just giving you a sense of, here's what, smattering of what stuff looks like. Now, animism is also perhaps even more older than the polytheistic religion, because it's sort of, before we define any type of story, we might have thought that there was spirits everywhere. It's sort of the force that binds us. It's the tree that has a spirit, a rock has a spirit. Everything has a balanced spirit, and that I can kind of utilize through story or through ritual, a way in which to connect myself to the world. Again, interpreting nature is the central message of animism. And animism is when I try and worship earthly objects because they hold power. Imagine trying to farm for the first time, and you're not sure about the process because no one has created a book yet on how to make corn. And so you're trying to learn it because you're going to die if you don't. it may make sense to you to do a little ritual and then hope that the corn grows. And then if that corn grows and you've done that kind of like weird, like, you know, ritual thing, you're going to want to do that again and again and again and again because you know it connects well to whatever you're doing. It makes a good crop. And so this is, again, a proto-science. Observing the world, creating rituals that help me understand the world and help me better myself as a result. Includes animals and weather deities. Often uses sympathetic magic. If I can do certain things, if I can make the right sacrifice, I can make the world do what I want it to. Strong balance between man and nature. All have an equal spiritual force that, quote-unquote, animates all. That's the key word there, animating. Things are animated with the spirit, not just objects. They are things of respect. Now, in some ways, you can kind of scoff at animism if you just decide, oh, rock has a spirit in it. On the other side, I can kind of maybe respect that a little bit in ways that we no longer do. How many of you guys respect the desk that you're in right now? Or respect the walls around you? Or the tree that you passed by? Or I see some kids like breaking branches off trees, trying to, you know, destroy it. It's like animalistic, right? To think like that, it's just awful, right? You just look at that, you're like, what are you doing, right? The disrespect of nature, I think, is an interesting side note to all this. So we scoff at, but also think, wow, these people had a deep respect of the things that helped them in their lives. So things that animate. Let's look at some works. Of course, the ancient prehistoric peoples, this was like probably their life all the time, is animism. More than likely, the reasons for prehistoric cave art, animism, right? Trying to create sympathetic magic. Along with the placement of polytheistic Shinto religion, where you have different gods or deities that work and ancestors that you worship, you might also place very important symbols, sort of gateways to the spiritual realm in very important places that would create a sense of sympathetic magic. So Shintoism is an interesting example of both animism and polytheism, because everything has a spirit in Shintoism, including important architecture that literally creates a sort of magic or a place in which you are creating good, sort of good, I don't say good vibes, that cheapens it, but you get in a place of blessing as a result. Neolithic cultures, not just the Paleolithic, but Neolithic as well, doing the hunt, projecting the hunt onto walls so as to have a good hunt. I told you about Head Smashed In, Wyoming or Montana, in which they threw everyone over the cliff, kind of thing. The buffalo over the cliff, and had these whole rituals as a result of it. Did I tell you about that, or did I tell my other class? Yeah, I did. Head Smashing, right? Really weird.
Like everyone has big legs except for that one. It's like her legs are, maybe that's a child.
This one?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Maybe your legs.
No, they're kind of long. They're okay. She's maybe just tiny. All right. And then in English 10, you guys will read a book called Things Fall Apart, and in the African, in Igbo culture or other types of African tribe cultures, Bushman culture, you have, for instance, with this is an Iglugu ceremony. So you have a dance that creates a sympathetic magic based on dead ancestors, the beginning of the clan. So you have people who take on the dance and the ritual, and they become this Iglugu, the spirit of the ancestor that passed away. And they dance and they make these sort of scary noises, and everyone knows that these people are the ancestors of the clan. They're not the people underneath the mask. They have this complete identity change. And that's a very fascinating thing about the art of non-Western cultures, these contexts of beyond the Western tradition.
Like Halloween, you can be who you want to be.
Questions in the back?
No, seriously.
Questions in the back? Yeah, no, I can. Questions in the back? We good? Just want to make sure that there's no one having to have questions about this stuff. Yes? Is my door locked, by the way?
Yeah, now you try it.
Okay. Is it everything, or is it just this? All right. Switching gears now. Judgment narrative. What happens at the end of time? Lots of art for end of the world stuff. End of the world is not so much, is that for bettering people? Kind of, maybe. You can kind of think of it as bettering people because you want to make sure that people are doing the right thing before the end of the world comes. But for the most part, it's usually pretty destructive. So it might have a different function than that. It might be something along the lines of understanding perhaps what the end game is going to be. Think about the death of everything. It could also be a projection of my own fear of death. So it's like a sense of comfort that I know something's in control of something that would be otherwise unknown. So gender narratives are emphasis on what happens after death or the end of time. Heroes often face some form of judgment in their life, and certainly of whether they become a good person or a bad person, depending on the decisions they've made. We also have creation myths or creation fictions or narratives, however you want to call it. But there's stories that are told about how the world begins, and naturally they're usually bookmarked with, and this is how it will end. So that everything is sort of filled in the meantime with expectations that we know about. More prominent and monotheistic religions tend to be utilizing death narratives. But Egypt is sort of an exception because they're all about death. And they have very polytheistic stuff, but man, do they emphasize death to a degree much higher than everyone else. A couple of examples of judgment narratives, starting with the Egyptian context. What's going on here? If you were to explain this, my 7th graders, or my people who are, just in the Egyptian expertise.
Well,
Yes.
it looks like, I want to say since they have the feline heads, those would be the pharaohs.
Okay, so these characters here.
Yes.
Who are these characters? These pharaohs? Yes.
Oh, the one on the right, the one holding the quill, that's Osiris.
Yeah, Osiris, right?
Yeah.
Good. Now, who is Osiris?
He's kind of like Zeus in Greek mythology, but except he controls like whether if you are fit to go to the underworld.
Right.
Or
So Osiris is sort of the god of underworld stuff, which is kind of weird because he's like the powerful god. So along with that is another god of underworld, which is sort of represented here. By the way, there's not two of them. It's the same story, just kind of continuing on. This is the god who? The jackal head, big dog head. Anubis, right? Anubis is the god of the burial and the mummification process, the bringing of people to the place of the underworld, or Mot. It's like this underworld context. Your heart is alongside this sort of feather of Isis, and it. As such, you're to what is happening here? What is sort of the universal symbol of judgment here? Yeah.
Wasn't it like supposed to be like if your heart was like you have more mistakes, it would weigh you down?
Yeah, it's basically like, hey, are you good enough for a generally better continuation of your underworld living? So it's sort of it's a judgment, isn't it? And judgment is based on, we kind of think of it externalized as a symbol, scales. Make sure to have that written down. That's sort of an important thing for judgment, is that it's a universal symbol that scales represent judgment. That everything is sort of balanced and weighed based on that aesthetic. Very interesting. This is from a chapter in the Book of the Dead. It's an Egyptian text on papyrus scroll from the New Kingdom. This was also on an art history exam in 2002, I think. Right, and they're weighting, this person's, basically his heart's being weighed against. Interesting that the heart is the seat of the soul as well in most of these ancient cultures.
Technically, it wouldn't be live right
Most
now.
of the brain was just sort of scrambled out. They didn't think of it as very important. It was like the heart, the kidneys, the liver. There's important places that they believe to be the seat of the soul and other aspects of your emotions. But the brain was just kind of like, just get rid of that. that's filler. That's like the custard at the top, and the whipped cream just comes up. It didn't mean anything. This is a example of another form of judgment. What would you say is going on with this one here? This is hard.
Eternal life.
Eternal life kind of looks maybe like eternal life.
The little kids.
What do you think that circle might be? If we talk about the square or the triangle being a developing of heaven, cycle. What kind of cycle?
Cycle of life.
What kind of cycle?
A life cycle.
Think about judgment narratives now. Yeah. Reincarnation, very good. So the idea that the Dharma wheel represents a form of judgment. How does reincarnation, if I'm just coming back over and over again, how's that judgment?
Because if God is, well, whatever God they choose to,
If you're being reincarnated,
it means you're holding them to come back to this earth because.
how do you have judgment based on reincarnation? Yes.
From what I remember from another religion, it's like you keep on retrying until you're good enough.
And that's the same religion. Hindu religions are creating sort of a reincarnation state in which as you progress in your ability to understand or to do right, you are progressing higher and more blessed in your next reincarnated state. If you're doing poorly, you regress downward towards a lower form of life that's more difficult, more deadly, that kind of thing. Until and then there's groups that are literally reincarnated always as the worst of the worst, the untouchables in society, the caste systems involved with it. So reincarnation as a form. This is called the Dharma wheel. It's also utilized in Buddhism as well. The Dharma wheel.
I
Yeah.
thought it was like, that kid's toy that she likes wearing. And it moves around and like
Oh, like
whatever
a
animal.
Yeah. Oh, I see. Yeah. It's like
Makes a sound.
the reincarnated elephant says, "Help me! I don't want to be an elephant."
Dude, you can play
Get
Little
it?
Fortune
Okay.
with this. Whichever one you land on, that's how you'll be hit.
Only half the people here. Shh. In the back. You missed a really funny joke. No one got it. All right.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Oh!
No, you didn't get it. Be quiet. Shush. It was really funny. No one heard it. I'm like, oh, I gotta write it down. What does the reincarnated elephant say? It was like this is not funny anymore. You can't say it again. Like,
Yeah, it's like one of those things you can't. I'm actually gonna use
I can't repeat. No, I'm not going to try. This is Valhalla. Valhalla in the
Viking heaven.
Yeah, Viking heaven is sort of a place in which you get to have the hall of drinking after a hero has done well in battle or something along those lines. And so it's like a continuation of that. Notice they're all having their horns of ale and their horns of beer. It's drinking, yeah. It's
Where's
exciting.
their beers?
They have their horse, of course. The horse is very important to that as well. Runestones, etc. in the hallway of the heroes. So Valhalla is a kind of a very robust, masculine ideal of heaven that you see in the Viking context. And then you have the continuation of the Western ideal coming out of the Greek context here. We'll notice a lot of Greek connections there. But this is a Christian work in Renaissance. This is in the... Did you say something? Or?
Oh no.
I hear like you're talking about scissors? So you're saying Sistine Chapel. I was really hoping you'd say that. Like, oh, damn. Sistine Chapel with Jesus in the center there. He's like doing a mighty smackdown into everyone
He's like,
around.
hey, and the lady's like,
You think it's like a high-fiving, but no, he's really like, you freaking sinners. So on this side here, all these people going, no, and they're falling down. And there's a whole side of people who are like wailing and moaning, like, no, Jesus, please. And he's like, no, and he's smacking down. And then these guys all on this side here are like, ooh, excited.
no, she's like, don't look at me, I'm too good for you.
That's Mary, yeah.
I thought she was like back.
Look at Jesus, dude. He's like all ripped too. He's got like that Michelangelo 6-pack, 1,000-pack that he has. So he has like just like well, it's like all over the place.
Yeah, but he's
It's
bulgy
bulgy.
too. You can't be bulgy and packed.
What does Jesus not have that you normally see Jesus having?
A beard.
Yeah, he doesn't have a beard. This isn't a Coptic depiction of Jesus, which we see is popular today. It's the Apollonian or the Greek depiction of Jesus, which is much more like, hi, it's like a perfect boy, like Apollonian, like Apollo. He looks like Apollo. And we'll talk about the
All the
differences
pictures of Jesus
there as we
are
get through that. Huh?
They depict him with like fair color.
Well, yeah, he's from
more North.
it's European, right? Yeah, we can talk about that. But then there's all sorts of seedy versions of the judgment narrative for Christianity because they love depicting what place?
Bethlehem.
Hell. Heaven's really interesting, kind of, but it's like more floaty clouds and stuff. But hell, I mean, there's a lot of stuff that goes into hell, right? You have all these like really creepy things going on in hell that I can paint and stuff. So I love painting hell, and I love talking about hell, particularly in the Middle Ages. Dante's Inferno. You go into certain circles of hell. You're at luster. You go to the second level, and you're going to be thrown around in hurricanes. You're a liar. You're going to be in the fourth circle. And you go down and down, all through betrayers and all these kind of places. But you get to put people there that you don't like. painters throughout history too will also put people in there as propaganda. I don't like this bishop. I'm going to put him in the corner of hell, and no one will know but me. And I'm like, yes, I win. Right? I'm this painter that can control life and death. It's very interesting. Dante's Inferno, Infernos in general, hell, etc. goes with them. This is the Antichrist. Antichrist has been around forever. People have been worried about the Antichrist or whatever. Even in the modern context, it kind of pulls on people a little bit. And in the modern, the Renaissance, you can see him depicted here as a guy being grabbed by the cloak of the demon, whispering in his ear, telling him what to say. 611. Hi. Okay. What period does he have me? Fifth period. Okay, I can let him know. I need time to do it, so I can get it at break. Give it. Okay. Sure, I'll do that. Where's OCS? 158. All right, thank you so much. Bye. Do you have any work for a student who did terrible in his class today and now is OCS? No. Yeah. Sorry about the interruption. Back on this. Antichrist being told what to say, sort of the vessel of Satan. Part of the judgment narratives is what's going to happen with, who's going to be in control. Is it going to be a good sort of everything's going to get better and then we're eventually going to go to heaven, or is it going to be like everything's going to hell in the handbasket and eventually die and be destroyed? So it depends on your perspective of things. For Valhalla, if you die in battle, you get this great thing there, but for Christians, it's a lot more about sin and your own sort of behavior and discipline and that sort of thing that goes into these judgment narratives.
You're coming with me, like taking him down, you're coming with me.
No. He's telling that he's going to lie to the people is what it is. It looks like that. But no, that's the anti-Jesus. The anti-Jesus. It's supposed to be the anti-Christ and the
Is this how we originated with the one devil on your shoulder and the one angel on your shoulder? It's like
yeah, that's been around for quite some time.
Oh, that's cool.
All right. Judgment narrative. Okay. What time do we have? How do we get out of it? 1 minute. 1 minute. I can see that you guys are getting in. So tomorrow, you guys look out. Tomorrow we will finish with world religions after we tell you a very important narrative cycle called the hero journey. And the hero journey is something that you will use quite a bit in your English classes the next 2 years. At least you should. If you don't learn about this year, you'll learn about it sophomore year. But it also has implications for how to learn about art. Make sure you're ready to turn in this packet tomorrow if you don't finish it. And then on Friday, we have our test on it. So we have a quiz that goes along with it. So credit seminar tomorrow, and then finishing up the thematic unit in the second half.
How does the major scale thing end?
See you later, guys.
I read it. This just says here. He kills I know that part. The ending. But then he says, okay, on guard. So they're going to fight in a duel. And Ranger won a win because he said this is what's come from them. That's an indication of reason.
There's a trash can there.
We were talking about the...
No, there's a trash can.
So I didn't have to get sad.
There's a trash can there. There's a trash can.
I have mine retainer. That's why.
Oh, that's alright. I didn't notice.
Yesterday you was making a story about the slab.
No, not about your. No, why would I ever do that?
I don't know. This was like
No, I don't. Well, when are you planning on putting something in? Yeah, I mean you can get that in. Yeah, it'll be a little bit off, but it's better than not having.
Okay.
You Period 2.
Oh, you mean I don't get a break? Oh, second period, all right. Changing gears.
Have this one.
No, my. Oh, yeah, white bin.